Hi, this is Darren QB Creedell Johnson from the music group The Shy Lights, author of Inside the Shy Lights Music Exposes Satanism in the Field of Entertainment, as well as author of Inside the Shy Lights Music. Today I'm going to talk about a podcast host by the name of Roxanne. She consistently puts content of white Caucasian males being predatorized or quote-unquote molested by Michael Jackson. Now, I have no problems with her relaying the stories of these Caucasian men who were children and who apparently were, according to them, raped by Michael Jackson. Okay, so, but what I do have a problem with Roxanne is that she refuses to even acknowledge black victims of the very same child molestation that she discusses with these Caucasian males. She deliberately, purposefully erases messages on her YouTube and on her website and platforms involving Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. She will literally erase anybody that's black, predominantly any black male who puts up any stories related to being raped or molested by Michael Jackson and his father, Joe Jackson, or his brothers, Joe Jackson, sons from the Jackson 5, Tito, Marlon, Jackie, Randy, and Jermaine Jackson, along with Michael Jackson. Now, what type of bias is this woman displaying with these actions? I mean, you people who are in the media are so biased and racist against your own kind. I mean, you're flagrantly racist to your own. How do you deliberately ignore the black victims who not only were raped and molested by the Jackson 5 and their father, Joe Jackson, in a gang rape involving satanic ritual abuse, which led to a 6-year-old being raped, a 7-year-old being raped, and a 9-year-old being raped by the Jacksons in a satanic ritual, and further went on to force not only the rape of these children, but were forced to literally force these children, meaning myself and my sisters, to embark upon being used in a satanic ritual where children, baby infants, were literally murdered and sacrificed by the hands of each Jackson 5 member and Michael Jackson and his father, Joe Jackson. But yet she continues to flagrantly show disrespect, disapproval toward the level of traumatic abuse that me and my sisters had to face as black children of the Shy Lights by the hands of the Jackson 5, Joe Jackson, and Michael Jackson. How do you ignore something like that and claim to be an advocate for human rights? Now, she mentioned that she had a nervous breakdown recently. So as far as her mentioning something involving a mental illness that she's going to try to say I have, well, ma'am, you have acknowledged to the world that you have had a nervous breakdown. So the mere excuse of a mental illness in order to dismiss away the factual story behind the satanic ritual abuse of rape and cannibalism done by Joe Jackson and the Jackson 5 is extraordinarily disrespectful to the Shy Lights, and even more disrespectful to black legendary entertainers' children who have had to undergo satanic ritual abuse with nobody whatsoever showing interest in the hurt and pain and traumatic emotional and psychological abuse that the Jackson family caused to myself as the son of Creedell Jones from the Shy Lights and his wife Deborah Jones, as well as my two sisters, Trinell and Tamiko. Where is the fair, equal media coverage on us? As you know, it only creates shame on yourself to be more interested in people who really don't even value as you as a human being whatsoever, as a African American woman. The very people that you constantly try to promote, which are Caucasian males who say that they were victimized, even though that they have shown flagrant homosexuality. I don't even, let's be honest, Safe Chuck is not even married to a woman. Neither of any of these victims who you claim were raped, who are Caucasian, 90% of them are homosexual, flaming homosexuals. I quote the book, I was married to Michael Jackson. Now, what straight man would write a book called I Was Married to Michael Jackson? Name me one straight man that would write a book that in that title. Okay? How can this same person say he was homosexually raped when he said he had a marriage with Michael Jackson? How can you say that? How can you face the world and try to explain to us that this person who wrote this book, claiming that he was married to Michael Jackson, was a homosexually raped child that was forced to undergo homosexual rape, when he wrote a book that's titled He Was Married to Michael Jackson? I mean, that is a joke. It is a joke, miss. It is a joke, miss. So how can you dare say such a thing?
It looks like you're on a news feed with a bunch of updates and trending stories, from dating trends to market changes and even a bit of football. If there's anything specific you want to dive into,
so my thing is, how can you disacknowledge the flagrant homosexual inserts of that title and then say that these quote unquote children were viciously raped and predatorized by Michael Jackson, with the title of that book gives nothing but full evidence and proof that these young white male children voluntarily had intercourse with Michael Jackson. Now, I'm not saying that they were not taken advantage of by a grown man that was 45 years old and finessing them into friendship. But what I am going to assert is that these children that you claim were mere victims of rape were not just mere victims of rape. These were homosexual children who desired to have a sexual encounter with Michael Jackson. And their parents cannot make me or anyone else believe that they did not know Michael Jackson was an androgynistic, flaming homosexual, when this man has lipstick that was literally permanently tattooed on his face, when this man looks like a morphodictic half man and half woman. Now, I met Michael Jackson over 5 different times, and each and every time that I met Michael Jackson, and matter of fact, I'm pretty sure you haven't. You're even met Michael Jackson in your life. I've met Michael Jackson over 4 or 5 times. Let me tell you, well, the first time I met him was when I was 6 years old. The second time I met him is when I was 21 years old. At 21 years old, Michael Jackson was a flaming homosexual. So you cannot tell me that I a person who has been in the presence with Michael Jackson over 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times, a good 4 or 5 times, I knew from the second impression that this man was a flaming homosexual. So the parents of these white children are not going to tell me that they did not know Michael Jackson was a flaming homosexual. If you have ever met Michael Jackson, anyone who has ever seriously met Michael Jackson would tell you to your face that that man is a flaming homosexual. Flat out. And that's no disrespect to Michael Jackson nor his legacy, but I'm going to tell the truth about this. Something that people can be bought off of, people can be bought to keep silent. In the case of Bill Cosby, everyone knew that Bill Cosby was a rapist. Everybody knew that Bill Cosby was a control freak, and everybody knew that Bill Cosby did not have the full capacity of sense. Okay. But the man, let's keep it real, was a billionaire and worth over $1.5 billion in 1985. He was worth over $1.5 billion. And now he's worth over $300 to $400 million today. So the fact of the matter is people kept their mouths shut because they know the man was rich and powerful. So let's not act like money doesn't have a role in whether these quote unquote white male victims of Michael Jackson's didn't have a interest in coming out and telling the truth about what happened to them. But it's amazing that they accepted millions of dollars to keep their mouth closed. And when the money ran out, then they come out and say that they're victims. Yet at the same time, writing a book saying that they were, quote unquote, married to Michael Jackson. What ridiculously do you have to be? What type of denial factor does your mind work in? Anytime they write a book to say they were married to Michael Jackson, what type of are you completely in denial that these white males were not homosexuals, that they did not willingly give themselves to Michael Jackson, they did not willingly submit themselves to homosexual conduct with Michael Jackson? Because let's be honest, these male children could have ran to their mother, their father, the police, the bodyguards. When they left Never Never Land, they definitely could have ran to the police and told them that Michael Jackson touched all over them, Michael Jackson molested them. But why did they not go to the police after the event occurred? Even if they were saying, okay, I had security, Michael Jackson's security was all around, I was scared. They went to their homes. They went to their own homes after that experience happened to them. While in the privacy of their own homes with their fathers and their mothers, why did they not tell the truth? Why did they not complain about being sexually raped? Let me let you know something, and I know they're lying about this, because when a person is raped, especially a male child, when a male child is raped, they have a rectal damage done to their rectal. So you cannot be raped as a man or as a little boy, especially a little boy who's much more under conditioned than a full-grown, entire grown man. If a grown man at the age of 45 years old raped a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, or a 12-year-old, they would have rectum damage to their body. So you don't even know what you're talking about, first of all, because you look this up. When a child is raped by a man, there will be a significant amount of rectal damage in their body. They will not be walking around, I wasn't raped. They would not be walking around telling their mother and father that they weren't raped. Okay, because trust me, it would have been anal damage to their body to such a degree, and the level that this Safe Chuck expresses happened to him the level of rape that he's trying to exhibit or trying to get across to the average listener or audience, he said that Michael Jackson was physically abusive sexually, using forceful sexual assault on him on many different levels. He said Michael Jackson held him down. He said he told Michael Jackson to stop, and Michael Jackson would continue to do this. That man would have had rectal damage. That man would have had physically medical rectal damage that would have caused him to have to go to the hospital emergency room at the age of a 12-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 9-year-old, at a person under the age of 15 years old. They would have had to attend a hospital because Michael Jackson was not a little young, petite individual. Michael Jackson was a full, nearly 6 foot tall, 5'10" to 6 foot tall, 170-pound man raping a 12-year-old. That child would have had rectal damage. So the fact that he claims that he was trying to fight Michael Jackson off, and as he told Michael Jackson, no, listen, if that was the case, he would have had bleeding in the rectal area. So he's trying to tell me he didn't have bleeding in the rectal area, or if he did have bleeding in the rectal area, that did not bother him enough to go to his mother and father and say they raped me, to say I have discomfort in my rectal because Michael Jackson did something sexually a violation to me. He physically forced me to undergo physical rectal rape. So I don't believe that worth nothing, and I don't believe that you believe it either. Okay, because medically speaking, and I took I went to school for the medical industry, so I know. Okay, as a patient care technician, my training as a patient care tech, we knew and we were taught what rape damage does to the body of a victim of a rape, especially a child. You will have rectal damage in the back of your rectal. Simple as that. And it would not, especially someone tall as Michael Jackson, almost 6 foot tall. That child would not have been able to walk correctly if Michael Jackson was physically showing forceful rape in his internal rectal area. He would have had internal rectal damage. He would have had bleeding to the rectal. He would have had damage to his rectal to such a level he would not been able to walk for several days if that was the case. So I know that he's lying. I know that if it was some sexual, which I believe 100% Michael Jackson did molest these kids. No question about that. But I definitely don't believe that these white Caucasian males were taken on or forced to undergo, were held down forcefully by Michael Jackson and forced to undergo sexual rape. No, sir. No way in the world. Because why would they come back to Never Never Land again? See, here's another discrepancy here. So Michael Jackson physically raped them. Is this correct? And without their own willingness involved in this. He forcefully raped them without their willingness to go along with this. Yet they would come back again to his mansion. They would come back again to his house knowing that they're going to be raped in the rectal area, which caused bleeding and damage from the first rape. Why would they say, okay, I want to be raped again. I want my rectal to have bleeding in the rectal damage again, and I won't be able to walk for another day or two. Come on. You know better than this, and I know better than this. So what is alarming to me is that the ease that you that you express these people's quote unquote sexual rape, and you won't even give a second thought as to I being a victim of the Jacksons involving the real sexual rape, that me and my sisters had to go to Coronel Glennon's hospital from such a severe rape done by the Jacksons. Joe Jackson and the Jackson Five and Michael put on such a rape to me and my sister that she had to have stitches in her rectal area. I had to have damage repair from the rectal area damage that the Jackson Five did. And you want to give me this bull about a white child who obviously worships the ground that Michael Jackson walks on, displays the admiration of worship of this man. Somehow Michael Jackson forced them to do this. Then they come back and write a book stating that he was married to Michael Jackson. Come on. You know, there is a level of mental illness involved in this, lady. Roxanne, there is a level of self-hatred and denial about self-hatred to such a degree, Roxanne, that you are in denial about the prejudice that you are showing toward the victims who are African American or black, involving the Michael Jackson and the Jackson allegations of rape and satanic ritual abuse. Period. You cannot be a commentator on either side until you denounce the self-hatred that you have about real stories involving the rape of black victims of the Jackson Five. Now let me note this and then I'm out of here. I'm going to say the Jackson Five were assigned to a black record label by the name of Motown Records. There were no white artists other than Tom Jones, and I think her name is Marie. They only had 2 white artists on their label. So if the majority of the homosexual raping that took place in the Jackson family really took place, it would not have been with the majority of Caucasian children. It would have been with black children, because the majority of the artists on Motown were black. And the majority of the children that the Jackson Five were around were black children. They were not around a bunch of Caucasian children in Motown. They were around a bunch of black children. And the majority of people who came to see the Jackson Five were black. The majority of the children who were around them during the time of their careers in the 70s and early 80s were black. Because their audience of Motown records were primarily black. So how do you somehow disacknowledge the true access that the Jackson Five had to black victims who were children? Not to mention the other musicians' children in the Motown records, the other members of Motown who were singers and artists, they had children that probably were molested by Michael Jackson and the Jackson Five too. So why are you not exploring that level? Why are you not interested in that aspect of it? Why are you hell-bent and focused on nothing but European victims who are obviously, most of them are homosexual? Hence the quote-unquote close proximity of contact that Michael Jackson had with these children. Most of the children that Michael Jackson, after the 1975 or 1976, when he parted with the Jackson Five and went on his own solo career, the majority of those children that were male children that were around Michael were primarily homosexual children. He did not take straight children and just rape them. Okay? That's first of all. So we can look at even the guy Webster, the little kid Webster from the TV show Webster.
It's definitely a lot of angles from.
So even in that case, This man clearly chose male children who he felt were homosexual children, okay? Now, I'm not a homosexual. I am a heterosexual. But now I never volunteered my body to Michael Jackson, nor have I ever, nor did my sisters volunteer their body to Michael Jackson or the Jackson 5. We didn't say, oh, that's Michael Jackson. Oh, I'm so excited to be around Michael Jackson. I will let him sexually molest me. Or my sisters didn't say, they are so happy and thrilled and just taken back, breathtaking, so, to such a degree that my sisters who were 7 and 9 years old said, I would love to let these Jacksons sexually exploit me. We never said that. We were forced to be the victims. Not like these white Caucasian males who you're talking about, who are obviously by the age of 12 or 13 displayed homosexual tendencies themselves. Because we can take a look at any one of these men and see they are not married. Most of them don't even have children. And it would give you the impression that they are possibly homosexuals, especially if they wrote a book that says they married Michael Jackson. Now, all I have to say to that is, why don't you decide to do fair and equal media coverage, not just to a bunch of white European children who were probably flaming homosexuals anyway, but I'm talking about all children of all races and all colors. I'm pretty sure he probably raped Asian children. He probably raped Latino children. He probably raped black children. He might even raped African children. What is this denial that Michael Jackson could not have raped black children, that the Jackson 5 could not have raped black children? So I would like to see I challenge you to do a fair, equal, bipartisan media, journalistic approach to the stories pertaining to the Jacksons in general, involving child molestation and satanic rituals. Because let me let you know something. The molestation that you're talking about is nothing in comparison to what me and my sisters had to face with the Jacksons. We were forced to not only be raped in a satanic ritual, but they were also forced, my two sisters were also forced to be used to forcefully murder the babies brought to the satanic rituals by the Jacksons themselves, in which Joe Jackson, being the father and leader of the Jacksons, placed the dagger in my sister's hand, and I had to watch as both him and Marshall Thompson from the Chi-Lites, including all Jackson 5 members, Tito, Jermaine, Randy, Marlon, and Jackie, forced my sister to slice open the neck of a baby infant, and then only to have to be forced to eat the remains of the dead infant that she was forced to murder by the Jackson 5 and Joe Jackson. Now, where's our media for it? I think people should be ashamed of themselves to sit up and practice what I'm looking at from your journalistic perspective. Thank you.